Okay, firstly, thanks very much for coming along this morning. I think, as we understand, we're dealing with a really difficult and challenging issue. I think the way it's been managed and handled by the media today recognises the complexity of the issue that we're now dealing with. There is a limit to how much I can say today. I'll try and be as open as I can, understanding that there are probably two elements which do prohibit me from talking too much about the matter. Firstly is we're trying to establish the facts as to how it evolved, what's actually happened here. We understand the reasons why Liam was in Central Australia, in Alice Springs. Exactly how and what happened over the last 24 hours we can't be entirely sure of. And the second part obviously is that it's clearly a police matter. We understand and we can confirm that Liam has been charged. We are at this stage trying to get him back to Melbourne as quickly as we can. Ultimately, the courts will decide the outcome of what has actually evolved here. We'll try and assist and support Liam as much as we can during this period, understanding that we are dealing with incredibly complex, emotional and difficult issues. Liam has always, in our estimation, been a person of, or his story, I suppose, is one of being against the odds. One of the great football stories, as we've heard many times. He's always dealt with everything that he's had to deal with great maturity, and we expect that he would continue to do so whilst dealing with this particular issue. How much and what can happen or how it'll play out from this point onwards would only be speculation. Obviously, how it evolves with the courts will dictate in the main, what happens from this point onwards. But that's all in the future. Happy to answer as the questions as I can, recognising the sensitivities involved in this matter.
What's the time frame of things today, Cameron? Is he expected to face court today?
Yeah, hopefully that'll be dealt with this morning, and he'll be on a plane back to Melbourne as quickly as he can.
Have you spoken to Liam?
No, we haven't.
Could you just elaborate, Cameron, on what Liam's been doing up in Alice Springs over the last couple of weeks, and obviously the interaction with the club in terms of supervising that?
He basically returned to Alice Springs to deal with a family bereavement. He's the sister of his partner passed away quite suddenly. He's been assisting her through that process. Clearly what's happened in the meantime is a significant court matter has been heard. Liam sought to stay there during a period of time. Clearly he is often torn by the various responsibilities he does have as an elder within his community, and obviously the responsibilities that come with being an elite athlete playing in an AFL football club.
What sort of support is the club offering, Cameron?
As much support as we possibly can, and we can, and I think everyone understands the support the club has provided Liam in the 3 or so years that he's been here, and we'll continue to provide support which is consistent with that attitude.
Cam, did you want him to come home a little bit sooner?
We understood. He communicated with the club fully. We understood exactly where he was at. There hasn't been any lack of communication. Obviously the news when it came yesterday came as a great shock and great surprise, and we've, like you guys, we've spent the last 24 hours trying to piece together what's actually happened.
What are the charges and how much can you elaborate on the allegations?
Really can't elaborate anything.
And the charges themselves, what are they?
As per has been released.
Don't be too dramatic about it, but did you have some sort of fears for his safety and that's why you wanted him to come back?
I think there is always, those fears. I think everyone who has read, I think Martin Flanagan articulated very well in his article this morning in The Age exactly what conflict Liam does deal with in regard to that. And I think when he does go home, it always is with some nervousness, but also out of great respect for the fact that he does have responsibilities within his community and within his family.
Will you go up today, or other members of the club?
We've got guys flying up there now. It's not easy to get in and out of Alice Springs, as you've probably understood as well. So we've got guys flying up there now.
When he comes back to Melbourne, will he be in a different sort of living situation? I mean, will you have somebody with him?
He's been in a very good living situation the time that he's been here. We haven't had any issues whatsoever in regard to that.
I know there's obviously complex legal matters on foot, Cameron, but will you be keen for him when he does return to Melbourne to get back in the flow of footy, so to speak?
I think the first thing is we sit down and talk with him and just see where his headspace at. He's obviously gone through a very traumatic situation, and we'll need to find out exactly where he sits at that time.
Best case scenario, when's the earliest you'll be back in Melbourne?
Well, hopefully today, yeah.
Is the club providing legal assistance or a lawyer for him?
The club's providing full assistance.
How much are the players sort of aware of sort of Liam's situation over the last
18 months. Would this come as a total shock to them, or they sort of have been aware of what's been going on?
No, I think everyone's been aware. It's been obviously a major story and a major issue within his community. Liam's dealt with it as best he can. He's had a number of trips back to NT over the past 18 months, of which he's been required to support family members during that time and community. But this is literally an issue which has split his family and split his community, and he's having to deal with that with the maturity that we expect and he has, and of that of an elder in his own community.
What sort of words would you use to describe the situation?
Complex and challenging. Try and have as much empathy. Like yourselves, we're learning as we go as well.
It's too early to think about football and how things might work if he's facing charges later in the year in Alice Springs.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Do you think that the AFL is prepared, or is this something that you guys need to reevaluate when it comes to actually working with young Indigenous players and the issues that they are faced? I know the AFL's done a lot of work over the years in looking at that, but has this just raised a whole other level of where young Indigenous men in particular are?
What it shows is the game has given great opportunity to a lot of people. What we do, firstly, we don't talk in stereotypes. I think that's important. The first thing that we do is we provide support for any person who is involved in our game. Liam is obviously the centre of attention at this time. We'll continue to provide him with the support that he needs, the same way as any other player would. And in dealing and providing that support, you do so with empathy to the issues that they're facing.
But as an elder of a community, it's quite a complex issue, and it's something that I guess will affect the Melbourne Footy Club.
It's clearly a complex issue, but it's one of which we've had empathy with, and he's shown great maturity in terms of dealing with to this point.
What contact have you and the club had with the playing group? I mean, have you had to sort of talk to them this morning in the light of the circumstances?
Yeah, we've had Josh Money, our football manager, is talking to the group, as is Neil Craig.
Do you believe Melbourne Football Club's equipped at this stage to deal with the situation, and what support?
Look, it's a good question. You know, we believe we are. We're providing great support, but as I said, we're learning as we go too. We've been into his community on a number of occasions. Jim Steins famously went to Yuendamu. I've been there twice. A number of our people have. Where it is something very different to what we've all grown up with, and we do our best to have great empathy for it. At the same time, we would never be so presumptuous to say that we fully understand, and I think that's a critical element. And I think the way that the media has dealt with this today, and what I read in the papers this morning, really reflects that, and I think they should be congratulated.
Cam, you've been around footy clubs a long time. Is this the most sort of complex issue, going over 18 months that you've had to deal with?
It's clearly a complex issue, but let's not underestimate the quality of the individual we're talking with in terms of what he's been able to deal with thus far in terms of playing his career. Clearly he's in a challenging and difficult place now. Our expectation is that he will continue to manage and deal with this with the maturity that he's shown thus far.
Has it affected his desire to play AFL football over the last 18 months?
The issues that he's dealing with, it's clearly been in the background. We haven't seen any lack of commitment, if that's what we're asking. In terms of he's been here on business, as we've explained before, with the full support of his community, and we understand that continues.
I know it's not a priority at the moment. Do you fear this latest episode, though, he might just decide it's just a bit too hard for him?
We'd have to sit down and discuss with him. I think we need to take it one step at a time, and that's important. The first matter to be dealt with is the matter at hand, which is the fact that he has to deal with what will clearly be a court issue.
Do you know how he's coping with the situation? He must be under a lot of stress, obviously.
Yeah, I imagine he is, and that's why we're looking forward to getting him back and having a chat with him and working out a clear pathway for him forward, so he can get the clarity that he needs to move forward.
So who are his closest mentors here at the club?
He's got a number. Yeah, he's got a number. Obviously, we've got the support of the Indigenous players who play here. He's got a very strong relationship with Craig Lees. He's got a very strong relationship with Bruce Hearn-McKinnon, who's probably the person most responsible for him being in Melbourne in the first place, who's currently flying to Alice Springs to support him. There's no lack of support and there's no lack of empathy. From time to time, we lack the understanding, and that's what we continue to build.
How hard is it for a football club to, I guess, balance or juggle the competing responsibilities of family obligations, traditional obligations, and obligations to the club and the game?
I think people often will underestimate what a player has to go through to play AFL football. What we're dealing with here is one which is very much in the public eye. I think every player to play an elite standard of the game is required to give of himself at a maturity level, perhaps often which belies their age. And I think what Liam's done to this point has been extraordinary. We've said that. I think it's probably the longest journey any player's ever taken to play, and that journey continues from our perspective.